We got a positive update on Mikel Brown Jr.'s injury situation on Monday. And with a tough stretch coming up for the Cardinals, Louisville needs their star point guard back as soon as possible.
You are Locked On Louisville, your daily podcast on the Louisville Cardinals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Card Nation, what's going on, everyone? Welcome in to this Tuesday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Pence. This is my 6th year covering U of L, 4th year hosting this show. Thank you so much for making Locked On Louisville your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network on the planet. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app today, create an account, use the code Locked On College for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. A lot to discuss today. As we got done recording Monday's episode on Sunday evening, Louisville received 2 more commitments from defensive backs in the transfer portal. So we will discuss what both of those portal commitments bring to the table. But most of the show is going to be centered around basketball. Tough slate to end the month of January. I think we're going to learn a good amount about where this team is over the next 3 games. But we're going to begin today's discussion by reacting to the injury update that we got on Mikel Brown Jr. on Monday. Now, this came right from Mikel. Mikel tweeted this out or posted on X or whatever you want to call it. It's always going to be Twitter to me. But he tweeted this out at 11 a.m. on Monday. He says, and I quote, it's a very brief tweet, but there's a lot of substance in here. Tweet says, and I quote, "One step closer. Been working extremely hard to get back as soon as possible, and after great news, I will be practicing this week. See y'all soon." End quote. Initial thoughts when I read that tweet were obviously encouraging. You see the positive wording there. He's going to be practicing. That's a good step in the right direction. See y'all soon. I know that the main thing that has frustrated Cardinals fans since he's been out, which has been over a month to this point, I feel like the main thing isn't really so much about his injury. It's more so about the messaging of it from the program. There's been a ton of inconsistencies in the messaging. Not a ton of clarity. A lot of that, I believe, is because of how tricky back injuries can be. There might not be a set timeline for a back injury. There might be some setbacks that he faced. If there was a plan in the past to shut him down, well, then there really isn't a timeline, right? You kind of go based upon pain threshold and getting to a point to where you feel comfortable putting him out on the floor. So could the Louisville program have handled this better from a messaging standpoint? Yeah, perhaps. And I'm not going to sit here and tell fans how to feel. A lot of fans were frustrated by it. I think most of the frustration was centered towards the messaging more so than the injury itself, but maybe I'm incorrect in assuming that. But this is good news because there was some concern by a good portion of this fan base that he might have played his final minutes as a Louisville Cardinal. But it seems like here on January 19th, when we're recording this, January 20th on the post date, is that his return is imminent. Now, we don't have an exact date of when he's likely going to play. He's returning to practice this week. And the first thing that I want to discuss is the wording of the tweet. Been working extremely hard to get back as soon as possible. This is where I want you to focus in. And after great news, heavy emphasis on that part. And after great news, I will be practicing this week. And I don't mean to really try to get analytical with this wording, but I wonder what that news was. Was it more testing that he got done that showed clean scans? Was it getting cleared by doctors? I'm not sure. But after great news, I'll be practicing this week is what Mikel said. Pat Kelsey said in the ACC coaches teleconference that there was hope is that he was going to be practicing, and Mikel sets the record straight and says, yeah, I'm going to be practicing. So I would imagine that even though they've been very cautious with working him back into game shape. They're still probably going to ease him into practice, right? It's going to be something where maybe he doesn't go full speed immediately. With that in mind, I'm not sure that you see him against Virginia Tech. Like, I feel like that's still kind of early. If you could get him back for Duke, that would be great. But SMU at the latest would be preferable because the schedule doesn't get any easier, right? I mean, it's still going to be a challenge with the ACC. The conference is much, much better than it was last season. And you need your star point guard back. So the actual return to the court for the Cardinals for Mikel Brown Jr. is still TBD. For me, all this is a good step in the right direction. But that is very significant in itself because we worried about his availability going through the rest of the season. Like, yeah, I mean, there still is a good amount of season to go, but it's only about a month and a half, less than 2 months for the regular season. So a back injury can be very tricky, something that I'm hoping doesn't happen. And I'm going to knock on wood. I'm hoping, this doesn't happen. But with back injuries, it seemed like the rumors were that he might have experienced a setback back in December. I'm hoping that as they ramp him back up, as they get him back up to game speed, that he doesn't experience another setback, because it seemed like when he missed the game against Tennessee, things were precautionary. He might have missed the Montana game, right? Might have missed the Montana game because you can beat that team without Mikel Brown Jr. And then you have 10 days off before ACC play starts. Well, he had a full participation in practice before the Cal game and then downgraded to game time decision and then out. And then at this point, he has been out on the injury report ever since. So looking at this, I think if you were waiting for an exact date to be released when he's going to return, then chances are you aren't happy with this update because it doesn't really tell you much. Because you're probably sitting there like, well, all we've heard over the past couple weeks is soon. He's going to be back soon. He's going to play for the Cardinals soon. And here you go. You see that word soon again, but I feel like this update is a little bit more tangible. Like, okay, he's going to be back soon. Sure, that is what it is. But when you hear that he's going to be back practicing this week, I don't see how you can look at that in a bad way whatsoever. The only way that you would look at it in some sort of way of that fashion would be if you're just hoping that he said, yeah, I'm coming back to practice this week. I'll be playing against Duke. The truth is that they're probably still in wait and see mode. They're going to see how his body reacts to ramping up and getting back into game speed. And they might still err on the side of precaution. Saying, you know what? We have gotten him back in practice this week, but we're going to give him some more time so maybe he doesn't play against Virginia Tech. And this is all speculation, right? I'm not sitting here acting like I know something that I don't. I'm not insinuating anything. I'm just having a discussion. We're just on a podcast talking about all the possible outcomes, because even though we got a really good update on Monday, I still think that we are still at the at this point, we're at the point of waiting for him to get back up to game speed and get to a point to where everyone is okay with him being back on the floor. So, but regardless, I love this news. Love it, because Louisville needs their star point guard back. When you see what's happened since he's been gone, two things are true at one time. I don't think Louisville should be struggling as much as they have been without Mikel Brown Jr. And the other thing that's true is that they are struggling this much without Mikel Brown Jr. You don't have that go-to facilitator. Ryan Conwell is being tasked with not only being the go-to facilitator, but also the go-to scorer, the go-to ball handler for 30-plus minutes a night. Not everyone can do what Chucky Hepburn did last season. What Chucky did was not normal, pretty rare. So you can't just assume that players are going to be able to have that level of usage and still be efficient and effective. Now, Isaac McNeely shooting the ball better. Other players playing better too is going to help out Ryan Caldwell. But when you can get Mikel Brown Jr. back on the floor, and at the very, very least, the gravity of having to defend a player of his caliber, it changes a lot about how you defend this Louisville team. And he's really good at getting to the basket as well. So you need him back as soon as possible. This is a great step in the right direction, the update that we got on Monday. But I mentioned just a couple minutes ago that the remainder of this January slate for Pat Kelsey's team, I think, is going to tell us a lot. Like, we're going to learn a good amount about where this team is over the next 3 games. I'll explain more when we come back. You're tuned into Locked On Louisville, covering your team every day. There's nothing like college basketball season. The packed KFC Yum Center being right there in the middle of the Joker and the Thief in the second half, the energy, the band, the moments you remember forever. But actually getting tickets, well, that part used to be frustrating with the long queues, logins, and prices jumping out of checkout. That's why Gametime gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to unlock amazing college basketball tickets and experiences in just a few taps. I opened up the Gametime app yesterday to look at the tickets for the upcoming matchup against Virginia Tech, and I was surprised by how fast it was to find great seats. But it wasn't about how fast it was to get tickets or find tickets. It was the view that I got to see from that possible seat before buying it. And when I added that seat to the cart, I didn't get hit with any surprise fees at checkout. Like, I knew what I was going to play right up front. I had that peace of mind throughout the whole process. So take the guesswork out of buying college basketball tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Thank you all so much for making Locked On Louisville your first listen of the day, and for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network in the world. If you haven't already, go check out our new Everydayer Club. You get access to an ad-free audio feed for Locked On Louisville, which is compatible with Apple, Spotify, you name it. You also get an invite to the members-only Locked On Everydayer Club Discord server, which includes a group chat just for listeners of Locked On Louisville. Go to lockedonlouisville.supercast.com or tap the link in the show notes to learn more. Continuing the basketball conversation on this Tuesday edition of the show, Louisville stayed in the top 25. They are number 23 after losing against Virginia on Tuesday and beating Pittsburgh on Saturday. They are 13-5 overall in conference play. They are also currently number 16 in the net ranking. Now, the ACC still has just 4 teams outside of the top 100 in the net rankings. That's why I said that the schedule doesn't get any easier. That's why you need Mikel back as soon as possible. But even with the challenging games coming up, like, it might not look like it from like a quad win standpoint, but I think this next 3-game stretch, the remainder of games in the month of January, is going to reveal a good amount about this team. We're going to learn about where this team currently is, and I think we learn a little bit about what's to come. Like, if Louisville goes into this next 3-game stretch and they win 2 out of the 3 games, and in that 3rd game, they're very competitive, but maybe they don't win it, and going into February, they're 15-6, I think you feel much better about where this team is compared to just a couple weeks ago. But if after this next 3-game stretch, you're talking about it in hindsight, like, man, they really dropped the ball, they're continuing to struggle against good opponents, and here we are seemingly with more questions than we have answers, which in that situation, you have a large enough sample size to suggest that you probably do have the answers to those questions. You just don't like what those answers are telling you. So the 3-game stretch that the Cardinals have coming up, they have a week off between Pittsburgh and the next game. Next game is on Saturday at home against Virginia Tech. Then you have a quick turnaround. You go to Durham and play at Duke, who beat you 84-73 at the Yum Center earlier this month. You will conclude January with a home game on January 31st against the SMU Mustangs. Now, me saying this isn't really so much about the teams that you're playing. It is, but you have, I'll say, as you have just as challenging stretches down the road. But you have at Duke, which is probably the toughest game you'll play all season on paper. You have a home game against SMU and a home game against Virginia Tech. This is a quad 1 and 2 quad 2 opportunities at the moment, right? At the moment. Because Louisville with 3-5 in quad 1, 2-0 in quad 2, you have a chance to build up your resume. Quad 2 against Virginia Tech, who's 54th in the net. Quad 1 at Duke, who is number 2 in the net. And then SMU is 33rd in the net. That's technically a quad 2 game at home. It could end up being a quad 1 game, but who knows? I just think that with the questions surrounding this team, like let's look back the past month, right? The past month. Your wins, you've picked up 3 of them. You've lost 3, you've won 3. Your wins are against California, which is a quad 1 victory at the moment. California 59th in the net. They're not a bad team whatsoever, but they're 2-4 in conference play. I think they're going to continue to go down the rankings. So that win doesn't look as good as maybe we thought it was going to. You beat Boston College, who at the moment is, I think they're the worst team in the ACC. They're 8-10, 1-4 in conference play. 165 in the net. Pittsburgh's 114th in the net. They're 8-10. So you haven't beaten any of the good teams that you've played. You lost to Virginia. You lost to Duke. You lost to Stanford. And Stanford, honestly, looks decent. They're 69th in the net, but hey, they're a respectable team led by a really, really good freshman. This 3-game stretch, you've got Virginia Tech, who beat Virginia at home. Or I'm sorry, they won at home against Virginia. They're 1-3 in quad 1 games. They're 5-2 in quad 2. Like, they're not a team that's, I think, is going to be favored against the Cardinals, but you've seen it. When Louisville plays good teams, if they're not hitting their 3-point shots, they struggle. When they play good offensive teams, they struggle defensively. So it's not more so about playing Virginia Tech and playing SMU as it is just take the name off the team and look at the resume, look at the net ranking and suggest, well, hey, you're playing better teams. And then you have a road game at Duke to start next week. So you've got 3 quality games coming up to end January. People are still wondering, well, how good is this team because of how much they've struggled with defense, with 3-point shooting. Mentioned yesterday that you desperately need the Pittsburgh performance, even though it was against a bad team. You need the fact that you shot well from 3, that you dominated from start to finish, that you built the morale back up. You've got to increase in the vibes department. You needed that to be the spark to kickstart a run. You needed that to be the spark to turn things around and have people stop wondering about, well, if Louisville's not making threes, how are they going to score the basketball and how are they going to beat good teams? You need that narrative to change from that to, okay, well, look at how they ended January. This is the team that maybe we thought we were going to see early on in the season because the opportunities are there to go out and show that you've made the improvements, show that you have the potential and the ceiling to be a solid team in March. But it's also an opportunity to get some signature victories, meaning Duke, right? If you beat Duke on the road, that's probably the best victory that you could get on your schedule. But 2 quad 2 victories against, I'd say, a pretty formidable SMU team and a respectable Virginia Tech team, that would be huge for your resume because even with how things have been trending over the past couple of weeks, you're still top 20 in the net. You're still top 20 in KenPom. The metrics are still fans of Louisville. It's just that you've got to justify those metrics by following it up with victories. We're going to learn a lot about where this team sits on February 1st. Because these 3 games, good measuring sticks. At Duke, how do you play against a team that embarrassed you in the second half? Is Pat Kelsey going to show that he can go toe-to-toe with John Shire in the second half? TBD. Beating Virginia Tech and SMU would also increase the vibes as well. So we'll preview the upcoming matchup against Virginia Tech as we get closer to that game. But we're going to conclude today's show by discussing the portal commitments that we weren't able to on yesterday's show. 2 more defensive backs have joined Jeff Brom's program. We'll break down what both bring to the table when we come back. You're tuned into Locked On Louisville, covering your team every day. Card Nation, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Leave us a comment in the YouTube section below. Both are great ways to help this show continue to grow. Be sure to get your mailbag questions in the comments as well. There's either going to be a mailbag episode on Wednesday or Thursday. Not really sure which one, but be sure to get those questions in. So, Louisville, at this point, it wouldn't surprise me if their class is finished. They added 2 players before Sunday evening that we talked about. Remember, Evan Wibberly from Kentucky and Travaris Banks from Ole Miss. Well, literally like less than an hour after we got done recording on Sunday night, the Cardinals got 2 more portal defensive back commits. The first one is Tennessee safety Kaleb Beasley. Kaleb Beasley was a blue chip prospect in the 2024 class, sort of like TJ Banks from Ole Miss that we talked about yesterday. Beasley played 2 seasons in the SEC. 2024 saw some action here and there, but played more of a rotational role in 25. 24 total tackles, 1 pass deflected, also had a fumble recovery for a touchdown. Now, Beasley is going to be in the mix to start alongside all Big Ten caliber player Iowa transfer Cohen Intringer. More on why I think that he might serve as a better backup to Intringer rather than a starter at free safety here in just a moment. But 6'1", 200 pounds, like I said, top 200 prospect in the 2024 class. It seems like if Jeff Brom isn't bringing in players that have been productive at their previous stops, he's going out and getting guys that were very highly touted coming out of high school. That seems to be a trend, but played in 13 games this season, has 2 years of eligibility remaining. I know that some that are part of the everydayer club of Locked On Louisville that tune in every single day aren't huge fans of Pro Football Focus. Some are. You all know my stance. I think it is a good metric. It's not the metric. Like, it's not the only thing that you should base your analysis off of. But he had a 61 PFF grade last year in 2025, which is not great. It's not like, oh my gosh, this guy can't play on the field, but it's not great at the same time. When I talked to a couple people in Knoxville, they kind of told me the same thing. He's shown flashes of being pretty solid, but he's also prone to giving up big plays. And as a fan of Louisville, when the Cardinals defense has struggled, a lot of times one of the main ingredients and one of the main reasons for that is because they give up big plays in the secondary. That's why I wonder, is he better suited in center field, like defending the deep pass, or would he be better utilized in the box, closer to the line of scrimmage, defending the run, more so being that guy out in center field? Now, I'm not going to write him off just because of what Tennessee fans have said, because we've seen how a change of scenery, how another year in college, like guys still can develop, like players don't stop developing after their sophomore seasons, but something to focus on, right? I think that there is some value in hearing what Tennessee fans had to say, considering that there were high hopes for him coming out of high school. Number 1 player in the state of Tennessee, was supposed to be like a multiple-year starting level player for Tennessee. Things just kind of didn't work out. They brought in Jim Knowles as their defensive coordinator from Penn State. He ended up kind of recruiting over Kaleb Beasley is what it seemed like, and Beasley goes to the portal and lands in the ACC. Maybe that's better for him playing in the ACC versus the SEC. Another year of growing and developing, and perhaps playing for a different position coach or defensive coordinator might help. Now, who is that defensive coordinator? We don't know yet, but when we do find out, we'll let you know. Kaleb Beasley from Tennessee will join the safety spot that brought in Cohen Entringer, that brought in TJ Banks, and is going to have a good amount of competition in the spring and fall camp. The other defensive back that the Cardinals got, the second on Sunday, was Elon cornerback Brycen Scott. Brycen Scott, like Beasley, spent 2 seasons at his previous destination, spent 2 seasons with Elon, 5'11", 183 pounds. He was in the back end of the rotation in 2024 and had a breakout year in 25. Appeared in 10 games and started 8 of those. He had 35 tackles, 7 passes deflected, 0.5 sacks. You're kind of seeing that trend. Like, I keep bringing up Indiana, and I don't want it to seem lazy, but it goes to show you that this formula works, even if you're bringing in guys that weren't at the FBS level or at the Power 4 level. Production is production. Sometimes it translates, but some coaches rather go with production at a lower level than a lack of production and maybe a higher potential from a Power 4 level. So I like the mixture of both that Jeff Brom is going after in the portal. Brycen Scott has more production. He was a starter in 2025. Now, it seems like, looking at the numbers, he kind of struggled with tackling here and there. Looking at the grades, the tackling numbers were not good, especially at the end of the season, but at various points during the year, there were times where he graded out really well. Granted, grades are a metric from PFF. They are not the metric. So I don't think he's like a projected starter going into 26. I think that he's going to be looked at as a valuable depth piece. Could he crack the 2 deep? I definitely think that's a possibility. Will he? That's to be determined, because you've got some competition there now. You've got some competition. You've got Tayon Holloway returning. He's a projected starter. Jaden Broadnax, 4-star cornerback signee from the high school class that is going to see some early playing time, in my opinion. Santana Wilson, very highly rated guy coming out of high school. Hasn't really been able to find the field at Texas, but still has that talent. So maybe he could be involved. DJ Waller from Kentucky, when he was healthy, played a good amount for the Wildcats, was a member of that national championship squad at Michigan as a freshman, played a rotational role that season. And I'm sure I'm missing some players like Antonio Harris, the Louisville Middle High School star that looked good in spring ball last year, just didn't get much run in the fall. You're going to have some competition. Adding more bodies to that room is awesome because, hey, injuries happen. Football is 100% contact physical sport. So you didn't really need a ton this week. You just kind of needed to fill out depth. Now, you needed a center and probably a couple safeties. You got those. But if you get a guy like Brycen Scott, who, hey, we believe in the skills, we believe in the trajectory, hey, why not take a chance? Take a flyer. Don't forget, not every player that you bring in is going to be an immediate contributor. So 2 years of eligibility, you're also building up some continuity as well. That is going to wrap up this Tuesday edition of the show. Everyone have a great day. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Go Cards.